In other news, NAPTOSA says they want to be consulted before a decision is made on a full return to school. Overcrowding, mental health of teachers and health and safety, they say must be taken into account. Also concerns of backlogs. NAPTOSA President Basil Manuel and Elijah Mhlanga, the spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education, join me now live. A very good evening to you, gentlemen. Thanks indeed for your time. Mr. Manuel, let me start with you. What are some of the concerns that you think need to be raised before a decision is made in this regard?
Good evening, Griselda, and thanks for the invitation. At first, of course, NAPTOSA will welcome the debate. I think it is a natural progression that the debate should happen. But of course, it must be within the right context. And as a teacher union, we want to be consulted on the matter. I'm unhappy that we see this in the press, and it heightens anxiety and gets people all panicked. We need to do it properly. We need to look at the realities. There are backlogs at schools. There are things that concern us immensely as teachers. The same teachers who are concerned about other things as well, such as the anxiety, notwithstanding what science is saying to us now. How do we unlearn the whole value of the social distancing that we've been drumming into people now? But also, of course, we have schools that have huge numbers and that are overcrowded. And how does that fit into a view that we could bring everybody back? What NAPTOSA is saying is that we want to be part of this conversation. We want to hear the story, but we also want to upfront and say we want to ensure that our schools are still safe zones. That for us is paramount.
Let me come to you, Mr. Mhlanga. Good evening to you. Thanks for joining us on the program. What is the status at the moment in terms of the view from the Department of Basic Education?
Well, good evening, Griselda. The matter first came to the public when the department went to the portfolio committee to deliver a presentation, and the DG was answering a question there. And in his response, he did indicate that the department was looking into the possibility of making a proposal to the National Coronavirus Command Council that primary school learners must go back to school. So a reporter picked that up and they reported on it, and we confirmed. I mean, the portfolio committee is a public session. And we responded to another media inquiry as to whether this matter was going to be dealt with in a workshop which took place today. Yes, the matter was debated today. It is correct that we need to consult, but we are not there yet. It's still an internal discussion within the sector. There's no proposal, there's no concrete proposal as yet, which you can take to your stakeholders to say, this is what we think, what do you think? We are not there yet. It's still at initial stages. Is
this the concern perhaps that learners are falling behind because they don't go to school every day and they have to self-study, if you may? Are those some of the concerns that might lead to that kind of conclusion, possibly?
Of course. I mean, we said this right from the start. I remember the minister in April last year, she did indicate that whenever we reopen schools after the first closure, things would need to be different. And we remember that we had to reconstruct the curriculum and try to get back some learners in some way to school so that we were able to finish the curriculum. We did that under extremely complex circumstances. Yeah. So it's been like that. We've been limping basically from then up until today because learners are not in school in the traditional way where everyone is in class at the same time and the teacher's teaching. So it's been a rotational approach right through, and that comes with its own difficulties because that's not how education is known to be like. So we've been struggling. Learners are falling behind. In primary school, even more, because those learners are young. So if there's no consistency in learning every day from Monday to Friday, they forget. And teachers are saying such. So the learning losses are actually much worse than what we think they are.
But I guess that will need to be balanced, Mr. Mhlanga, with ensuring that you don't have a disaster within these schools where in some cases, like Mr. Manuel indicates, issues of social distancing might be a problem. You have overcrowding in some of these schools, proper protective gear that would need, of course, to be taken into account. What are the decisions at the moment, or not decisions rather, but are you taking that into account as well? Because loss of school time surely would need to be balanced with the current pandemic that we find ourselves in.
We have not lost sight of the fact that the coronavirus is still very much a reality. It's still among us. People are being infected. The Department of Health reports every day that the numbers are there and the deaths are still occurring. So we want to do this responsibly. But remember, we don't make the decision. All that we do is to make a proposal to the NAPTOSA through the MAC and the net joint. So there's still a long way to go. That's why I'm saying today was a first step. And the first step was the DG and the HODs of provinces were discussing this matter. 2 presentations were tabled on this matter.
Yeah.
And we then deliberated on this. So there's yet to be a formal, concrete, final proposal that is going to be taken to the Ministerial Advisory Committee, as well as the NAPTOSA and net joint. So there's still a long way to go. But what we are saying is that globally, primary schools have not been disrupted. But also when you look at the statistics among learners in terms of the infections and the impact of the coronavirus, it's not as much as it's happening for older persons. That's why we feel there is a case to be made for primary school learners, at least to go back to school. Even at secondary school, perhaps a grade or 2 that could be there. But these are just possibilities.
Mr. Manuel, these are just possibilities, but of course, your concern at this particular point is that proper process, you say, should be followed. You want to be consulted in this aspect. And you've raised quite a number of issues: overcrowding, proper PPE that should be given at these schools. We're still very much, the coronavirus is still very much with us.
Absolutely, Criselda. And I think Elijah's ticking the boxes. These are the things that are known. And we've put these on the table many times. And we've also said what are non-negotiables. But I stress again, we are open to this. It would be foolhardy to think that we wouldn't get to this point where we've got to look and review. However, we're not going to do that blindly. And that is why I want to be very clear. We welcome the discussion. We welcome the debate. But we want to be included at the ground level so that we can bring the concerns of the teachers there as well. And I know that some people are chased by stories that they've read and things that are not necessarily based in science, but they're real. Fear is always real. And that is why we need to do this correctly, to take the people with us so that if we do get to a decision that says we're going to have more grades back, people are welcoming it. Remember, you don't want an overstressed staff. Already, people are starting to panic because of things they've read. And now I hope that this particular session will clear the air, that there's no decision. It's not happening yet. We are still a long way, and we've got to be consulted on the matter, and we've got to bring the views of teachers there. And I want to say to you, we are worried about PPE provision. We are worried about the water. We are worried about the overcrowded classrooms. And they are just part of the bigger whole. And that is what we are putting on the table here. And of course, Elijah knows that. We've said it over and over again.
Mr. Mhlanga, you'd like to respond to that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we'll consult them. He knows, Mr. Manuel knows that we have weekly engagements with them whenever there's a need to do that, especially when there are issues that need to be considered on a regular basis. So we never miss a step. We always involve them, and they've played a huge role, in fact, in the reopening of schools, even in the day-to-day management of schools since we opened this year and even in the period before 2021. So we work with them every step of the way. Where one of the biggest lessons, in fact, that we've learned in the past year is the value of consulting and making sure that everyone is fully taken on board, because every opinion, every perspective assists, because we are dealing with a situation that has not been seen before in the world. So you need to listen to everyone and do so honestly, frankly, and robustly.
Thank you very much, Elijah. I think clearing that up in terms of no official decision being made at this time, I think that allays some of the fears of the NAPTOSA President, Basil Manuel, as well. Thank you very much indeed to you both gentlemen for joining us on the program this evening. We indeed appreciate your time.